Hey Film Buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. Today I'm going to talk about a theory that I have about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, more specifically who the biggest liar or liars are in the MCU and what do their lies mean for the future of the universe. So, obligatory spoiler warning for everything up until the Eternals. That's the movie where things kind of started to not fit together, and that's what spawned this theory. Also, a different kind of warning. I'm going to say the word celestial and the word liar or lies a lot through this, so just be warned about that. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are no shortages of liars. Here on Earth, as far as villains go, you have the one end of the spectrum where you have the Sharon Carters and Obadiah Stanes.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps,
who are liars and they're pulling strings from the shadows, but their lies aren't earth-shattering. It's not earth-ending. And then on the other end of the spectrum, as far as villains go, you have Hydra, who is a literal Nazi death cult.
Hail Hydra.
Who infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D for over 60 years, and S.H.I.E.L.D is supposed to be made up of the world's greatest spies. That probably takes a lot of lying to pull one over on them, I guess.
Hail Hydra.
But even our heroes aren't immune to lying. Again, there's kind of a spectrum. On one end, you have Cap, who doesn't want to hurt Thor's feelings by lifting Mjolnir, so he lies and says he can't do it. And then you have Tony, who tells Pepper that he will destroy his Ironman suits to make her love him. And that works for one movie. And then by the next movie we see him in, he has Iron Man suits again because he lied. Little white lies, no harm, no foul. But on the other end of the hero spectrum, you have Nick Fury, who literally cannot not lie. The first time that the Avengers get together, the band almost breaks up before they can even get started because they find out that Fury lied about massive weapons that were meant to destroy aliens from other planets.
It's not me
I'm
that would
sorry,
make
Nick. What were you lying?
And they were using alien tech to make these weapons. So you can kind of say that that's a pretty big lie that almost broke up the Avengers before the Avengers ever got started. But even if you wanted to label Nick Fury as the biggest liar on Earth, I don't think that makes him the biggest liar in the MCU. Outside of Earth, you have people like Loki, who's the literal god of mischief, and deceiving and lying kind of fall hand in hand with his job description. And he even pales in comparison to his stepfather Odin, who covered up years of murder and destruction with a few lies and a giant floating city in the sky. So you can kind of say that Asgardians have sort of the thing for lying. But even then, Odin isn't the biggest liar in the MCU. I believe that there are at least two people who are bigger liars than him, and their motive for lying was revealed in the Eternals, and that motive is a ticking clock. My first theory revolves around the big bad of the first three phases of the MCU, the purple mad titan himself, Thanos. If we look at Thanos' plan, he wants to collect all the Infinity Stones to snap out half of the population in the universe, to stop starvation from coming to these planets for lack of resources, like what happened on his home planet of Titan. But before he started collecting the stones, we see him going from planet to planet, genociding half the populations there, like he did to Gamora's home planet. Again, for some reason, he believes that that's going to stop everybody from starving to death. But some things that don't make sense about his plan, and I'm not the first one to point this out, but he could have literally done almost anything else. He could have made the planets bigger to give more room for more resources, or he could have, just snapped more resources into existence, kind of a infinite number of resources, or heck, he could have made every creature in the universe make their own food through
photosynthesis.
Literally anything else almost would have been better than snapping out half the population of the universe. The only thing of wiping out half the population really did was slow the emergence of the Celestial that we see in Eternals.
5 years ago, Thanos erased half of the population of the universe. Delayed the emergence.
Because there wasn't enough mind power to feed its hunger, but when the Avengers blipped everybody back, that's when the mind juices went through the roof and the Celestial was ready to pop out.
The people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a finger.
It's almost like Thanos' plan had nothing to do with starvation, and it was literally just to stop the emergence of the Celestials. And if you watch film theory, they have a theory on this, saying that Thanos is an Eternal, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He has mind wiring that's letting him remember his past lives, and that's why he's doing what he's doing, to stop the Celestials. But I don't really agree with that. I think Thanos knows exactly what he's doing. It is a great video over on film theory, and it's really interesting, but my big sticking point of why I think Thanos knows what he's doing is, in Infinity War, Titan is
8 degrees off its axis. Gravitational pull is all over the place.
Mass starvation, resource depletion, and sharing your home with your extended family isn't going to knock your planet off its axis by 8 degrees. But a giant celestial popping out of your planet's surface could probably do that. Thanos has been on his mission to stop overpopulation and starvation since his planet was destroyed. And even if he was off in some boarding school on another planet, he's smart enough to know that the overgrazing of some space cows did not cause his planet to literally go off its axis 8 degrees and have its gravitation all messed up. There has to be something else at play, and Thanos knows that.
I'm the only one who knows that.
And all in all, I don't believe that Titan is the only planet that we know of that has been destroyed by a celestial emergence so far in the MCU. In Guardians of the Galaxy, we see that Gamora is the last of her species, but in Infinity War, Thanos talks about how prosperous her planet is since he genocided half of the planet.
Do you know what's happened since then? The children born have known nothing but full bellies and clear skies. It's a paradise.
Because you murdered half the planet.
A small price to pay for salvation.
But those two things don't really mesh well together. A planet can't be thriving with thousands and millions and billions of people, and also Gamora being the last of her species. But I don't believe that the Xandarians are wrong, or that it's a plot hole. I think that Thanos is lying to Gamora. I don't believe that her planet is thriving. Maybe for a short period it was, but eventually they began to repopulate the planet after the half genocide, and the mind power of that planet became big enough that the Celestial was eventually able to re-emerge. And that's where the ticking clock goes in. That's why Thanos dropped the planet-to-planet genocide that he was carrying out and went for the big ticket to get rid of half of the people in the universe so these Celestials stop popping up. Going planet to planet just wasn't working fast enough. That's why he'll
Do it myself.
When speaking of the Infinity Stone. Going to planet is taking too long. He kind of has an idea of what planets are pregnant with celestial babies, but he doesn't know all of them, and seeing the repopulation of Gamora's planet happen so quickly really puts in Thanos' mind this time clock that, hey, this is going to happen quicker than you think it is, let's get this done. So he decides to stop relying on henchmen like Loki and Ronan and just go collect the stones for himself, snapping away half the population, effectively saving trillions of lives by sacrificing trillions of other lives.
A small price to pay for salvation.
And racing against that same clock of celestial emergence is what our other big liar is doing. I believe that Ego the Living Planet is racing against celestial emergence to kind of propagate himself throughout the galaxy, and he's not really a celestial himself.
I'm what's called a celestial, sweetheart.
He knows that a celestial emergence is happening soon in planets where he has his own egg sacs ready to hatch, so he needs his son to act as a battery, another celestial, and the only one who's worked thus far is Star-Lord himself, Peter Quill.
I wanted to do this together. And I suppose you'll have to learn by spending the next 1,000 years as a battery.
Literally nothing that Ego does in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 lines up with what we're told the Celestials do in the Eternals. Ego goes from planet to planet laying his eggs, impregnating the planet as it were.
Implanted thousands of extensions of myself on thousands of worlds.
And then he sleeps with women on these planets, impregnating the women as it were. And once he gets a kid from them, he kidnaps the kid, he kills the woman, and then the kid dies because it doesn't have the celestial gene that Ego has in himself. But he's hoping that one of his offspring has the power that he needs and able to activate his goo egg flower things that he has on all these different planets. But he has to activate them before the Celestials emerge and destroy the planets that he has his egg sacs on.
I need to fulfill life's one true purpose. Grow and spread, covering all that exists until everything is me.
On the surface, him being a giant mass in space and impregnating these planets sound like something Celestials do, but it's almost like he heard the plan through a door or through a game of telephone or something, because he doesn't have the details specifically right. He's got a similar idea, but he's not doing the same thing, and that's my point. Ego is not a Celestial. To Ego, the planet's intelligence that his egg sac is on makes no difference to him. It could literally probably be an empty planet, and it wouldn't matter, because he just needs the power of another Celestial. But if that's the case, why doesn't he just team up with another Celestial? Why does he have to pass his own genes on to get that power? And we know that space inhabitants know that Celestials exist because Nowhere is literally the head of one. So it wouldn't be weird for them to hear that planets are being taken over or destroyed by Celestials, because some of them who've been around long enough have probably heard that before, or heard what happened to Gamora's planet or Thanos' planet, so it wouldn't be all that strange to them. So what does that mean for the future? Well, one, it means that Star-Lord is not the descendant of a Celestial. Ego, probably like in the comics, is just a planet that merged with a star and took in spaceships and other planets and things like that in order to grow his power, passing that power on to Meredith Quill, who then had Star-Lord, who was his only offspring to live. In the comics, he's not the father of Peter Quill. He's just a planet that has been out there for millions of years and has run-ins with Thor and Galactus and other cosmic beings like that. And maybe that's the same with the MCU. Not the fact that he's not the father of Peter Quill, but the fact that maybe he's just this giant planet that absorbs energy and became super powerful. And that also means that if Thanos and Ego are racing against the clock for the emergence of Celestials, maybe some other big bads lurking in the shadows are as well, like the Planet Eater himself, Galactus. With Reed Richards being introduced in Doctor Strange, that could mean that Galactus is around the corner, because that's one of the Fantastic Four's big bads. And if so, he's probably looking to munch on some planets. And it's probably better for him to munch on some planets before some Celestials can pop out of them, destroying said planets that he wants to munch on. I believe that Thanos and Ego are the two biggest liars in the MCU, and I think that means that with this time clock of Celestial emergence being put on the table through the Eternals, that could mean that we have other villains in the future knowing that, especially from what happened on Earth, and start racing against that same clock for world domination. But at least that's what I think. Let me know what you think down below, and if you have any theories about the MCU, I'd love to hear them. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.